Hi, everyone. Yolanda Smith Charles here, licensed realtor, and I'm a Michigan probate real estate expert. I work with a lot of out-of-state clients, a lot of out-of-state heirs, if you will, and the probate attorneys who advise them. And if you inherited a Michigan property and you're trying to figure out what happens next, this video will give you some clarity. Here's a quick note. Let me level set right out the gate. I'm not an attorney. It's pretty much why I'm wearing a realtor shirt, is because I am not an attorney. I'm not giving legal advice. I'm explaining how the real estate side typically works during the Michigan probate process and what I see families run into over and over again. Now, the thing that I hear the most is that probate feels harder when you live out of state. And that's an obvious feeling to have, I would encourage you to say. Here's the biggest issue. You can't easily see the property, you can't easily manage it or make decisions quickly. You're out of state, you've got other pressing matters that are keeping you busy, family, local things going on, work. And you're not here physically in Michigan, so you're not able to see the property. You're not able to walk it, smell it, touch, see, feel, all of those good things, right? And so when it comes to making decisions quickly, you feel either intimidated or like things are moving so fast and you haven't really able to get your bearings. And so Michigan properties, especially vacant ones, can create problems really, really fast. Just out my window is snow that we've had for weeks. There's pipes. Pipes need to be maintained. They have to still be warm in and out of your home so they don't burst. So quickly, we can find here in Michigan, maintenance becomes incredibly important. The gutters, the roof, all of those factors that come into what's changing in the weather, the temperature getting warmer and then getting colder, all of that creates swelling and modifying. And so you need to be able to see and make sure what is happening, with my family member's property. And so it can create problems fast. I talked about maintenance. Now, utilities. Utilities are also incredibly important. I talked about pipes, the potential of them bursting. Are those items covered? Things of that nature. Insurance. Even simple things like accessing the keys can be a challenge when you're out of state trying to manage a property. The other thing to keep in mind is what probate means for the house itself. Let me explain that a little bit. Probate is the legal process of settling someone's estate. Nothing more, nothing less. But as you and I are fully aware, estates can have a lot of things in them. And usually the most expensive, most prized thing in that estate is the property, the real property. And so the house, as I said, is often the biggest asset, and it's also the asset that creates the most, wait for it, emotion and disagreement. Here's the real world truth, y'all. Probate isn't just paperwork. Probate is people, property, and timing. People, property, and timing. And so that is what probate means for the house. So now that you know a little bit more about what probate actually is, let's talk about the 3 questions that decide everything. Almost every probate real estate situation comes down to these 3 questions in my experience. Number 1, who has the authority to make decisions right now? Right now is the key phrase, y'all, because there may be a person who's put in charge of the estate, and that person might be called personal representative. But once that personal representative starts to get into the paperwork and get into the filing of the documents and things like that, they are informed that your loved one also had a trust. And that trust had a trustee who was in charge of fulfilling the trust. So who's in charge now? Who has the ability to transact this property, to make decisions on the property? Is it the personal representative from the probate court? Is it the trustee assigned when that person was alive and said, hey, I want you to be in charge of my estate when I pass, when I leave this wonderful world? So who has the authority to make decisions right now? And you'd be surprised, folks, right now isn't next month when documents are uncovered. It's a really good reminder to have conversations with your loved ones about who's in charge, where documents are, but we'll talk about that more over the course of the next few videos. So the question number one is, who has the authority to make decisions right now? Second question is, what condition is the property actually in? And is it vacant? What condition is the property actually in, and is it vacant? Wow. Seems like such baseline, basic questions, right? The truth of the matter is, it's not. What is the condition? You're not in the area to be able to go and walk the property to determine the condition. So what happens then? You got to rely on trusted resources. We call those boots on the ground, right locally, wherever your property is. And so the question of what is the condition? Well, right now, like I said, in Michigan, we are under lots of snow. It's been super cold, and there may be things going on under the surface that we can't see because of the snow. And so, again, you want to make sure that you know what condition that property is in. And of course, if it's vacant, because a vacant property has its own associated risks. It has its own associated costs. If your loved one lived alone, that property is probably vacant. We can also, in a sub video, in a sub context somewhere, talk about squatters. But let's just say that the laws are on the side of the owner. And so we want to make sure to protect you at all costs. So we need to know if that property is vacant and what condition the property is. The third and very important question, maybe the most important question of all, what does the family want to do? What's the outcome that the family wants to happen? Now, if you are like me and you are your mother's only child and you lost your loving, wonderful mom, you were the only one who really had to decide on things. I was fortunate in that way where I didn't have to discuss it with siblings or my mom's siblings or anything like that. As an only child and the person in charge of the estate and all of those things, I was able to make those decisions pretty quickly as far as what to do with the property. What is the outcome that I want? But if your loved ones are alive who are connected to your deceased heir, then it's important to know what you guys want to do. So you're going to have conversation. It may not be comfortable conversation. Oftentimes it is not. But when you narrow it down to just the essence of what your options are, you can sell it as is, meaning don't lift a finger, don't spend a penny, find you someone to put that property on the market and sell it as is. You're not fixing anything. You're not repairing anything. There's no upgrades, no nothing. The house is for sale as is. Alternatively, we have the option here to fix it up. Consider fixing it up. That means you will be putting money into the property. Perhaps your loved one passed away. They had a bit of money where you could use some of that resource to ultimately make any small repairs. Maybe you want to put in some windows, which really can add value. Perhaps you want to do some flooring, or perhaps just a really good deep clean. That would be an option for you, would be to fix it up. The third option that some people will do is to keep it as a rental. Keep it as a cash flowing property. Allow that property to pay you in installments, in other words, with rent. And there are also some options out there for people who want to think in terms of tenantless cash flow. So you're not even depending on a tenant. And of course, you can ask me about that in the comments. The other thing would be, if you have siblings or someone else who's connected to the property, is to consider buying them out. So that would be an option too. So if your mother left the property to you and your sister doesn't want anything to do with it, but you do, you want to either sell it or rent it out, sister's like, I don't have time for that. You do whatever,